we definitely rewrote the script at the beginning of 25, and we have seen tremendous impact to our business from caving and submitting to the ProShop way of understanding costing and how to set up your business to succeed.
Welcome to the Manufacturing Transformed podcast, where we dive deep into the world of manufacturing and uncover the transformational journeys of companies that are powered by ProShop. Get ready to explore the stories behind the machines, the people, and the innovations shaping the future of this industry. Welcome to Manufacturing Transformed. Real shops, real stories.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Manufacturing Transformed. I just had a very heartwarming conversation with Justin Westerfeld from DieCraft Engineering, a very cool business that does lots and lots of very small quantities of parts. So he mentioned last year they did over 2,100 work orders with an average order size of 3. So as you can imagine, that is a lot of changeovers, a lot of setups, a lot of jobs, a lot of procurement, a lot of everything. And to hear the journey that they've been on with ProShop for the last couple of years is super sort of heartfelt for me. They went from a system that they thought was working just fine and they would have been happy with if it hadn't not been able to upgrade to the latest version of Windows. So clearly it was a server-based sort of on-prem solution. After going to IMTS in 22, they visited pretty much everybody except for ProShop because our booth was so busy they couldn't even get into our booth. But they heard ProShop on a Making Chips podcast and thankfully reached out to us, got a demo, and decided to go the ProShop route rather than another tool that they had selected. And to say that this is a transformation, I think is an easy thing to suggest. You know, they went from, as Justin was saying, 11 people in the office down to 6 people in the office. And while they also incorporated a new PEO, which saved, some labor for sure, he attributes possibly 3 to 4 positions in their office team that were essentially eliminated due to ProShop. And they can get all that work done with less people in a fraction of the time, going from an average of maybe around 10 days of lead time in the office down to about 1. And of course, that dramatically increases the amount of time they have on the shop floor. And they've been able to cut their lead times down by several weeks to win more work because their customers demand short lead times. And at the same time, increase their on-time delivery from around 50% to as high as 85% at times last year. So just a massive shift in efficiency, in throughput. He tells one really fun story of a lathe machinist who would, at the beginning, absolutely want to have nothing to do with ProShop, but after a period of time, became so reliant on it that when his little computer got fried for a couple of days, he was, as Justin said, fit to be tied that he didn't have access to ProShop and he had to walk across to a different workstation to do his work. So that speaks volumes to me that you have, sort of a quote unquote crotchety old machinist who now comes to rely so deeply on a tool like this to have them let them do their jobs better. So anyway, this is just such a heartwarming story from our perspective. Hopefully, if you're on the fence out there and listening to, does ProShop have a true impact? This is a genuine story of that happening. And as Justin says, he's been able to grow a ton as a leader in the last couple of years as the new president of this business, and feels that being a part of the community that we're building here has enabled him so much learning, so much growth. And of course, now he's here contributing back to it. It's a very virtuous cycle that we are incredibly proud to help promote and be a part of. So I've rambled far too long for this intro, but let's go and have this nice conversation with Justin. Justin, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Paul. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. So we got to hang out at the Top Shops conference, which was super fun. And as we were just saying before we hit record, both being motorheads, it was just, kind of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and going to tour Roush Yates and get a lap around the speedway there was pretty fun.
Yes.
And I don't think I've ever gone that fast in a bus or a big like 15 passenger van around a course, but they clearly had done it many times before. And even though I felt like I was going to tip over, but we didn't. So we lived to tell another tale.
Right.
But let's start with a bit of your background and a bit of sort of DieCraft engineering, what you guys specialize in, and then we'll get into the rest of it.
Cool. So DieCraft was founded in 1970 as a small manual machine shop here in the Cincinnati area. The current ownership purchased DieCraft in the early 2000s. So Skip's the current owner here.
Yep.
He moved DieCraft in 2004 to our current 32,000 square foot facility in Cincinnati. You open our garage door and you can see straight over to GE aircraft engines.
Oh, wow.
So we have a pretty nice location here in Cincinnati. My journey with DieCraft began in 2005. I was a co-op student from the University of Cincinnati. So I got a little bit of a different flavor of a co-op experience. My background, as I shared with you, is in automotive and racing. My dad was a mechanic, owns his own business, had a Bridgeport valve grinder, manual lathe. And in my background of racing, we built our own engines, Briggs & Stratton 10 horsepower engines. So I learned an appreciation very early for quality machine work, for the passion to want to go fast and win and dominate on the racetrack. So very quickly, I learned the value of tolerancing and important things with machining. We would set valve clearance or, hone the cylinder within thousandths. And I saw empirically that you could get somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10% power gain on a 10 horsepower motor based on how you did the machine work and how carefully you crafted and assembled those engines. So it was very natural for me to want to come here and do this at DieCraft because the scope was just so much bigger than anything I've ever seen before. My dad's shop was fun, and I really appreciate that experience that I got in his small business and learning about these things. But I got to DieCraft, and then it was just a clear slate for learning a lot more than I'd ever seen. 2006, I got my first opportunity to go up to IMTS and start to see really how big this world is. At the time, we had various machines here, different builders, different controls. We were still using edge finders at the time. So I got enlightened on probing and all this new technology that we didn't have here at DieCraft at this time. And I very much wanted that to be a part of what we did here at DieCraft. So, again, I was a co-op at that time. I was able to get to be out on the floor a lot. I wasn't the typical student that wants to sit in the office and make drawings and do CAD work. That really wasn't my passion. I wanted to be on the shop floor. So I got to learn a lot about the machining, the machines, what we do. Got to do modeling from SolidWorks and on the CAD side. Learn quickly to do some programming and do some basic programs and then set a machine up and run it. And I'll never forget coming in the morning and 8 hours later, getting through all of that R&D work to walk out the door with a finished part. It just completely, opened my eyes to what's possible and what can be done. And the rest is just history from there. I fell in love with it at that point. I've been with DieCraft ever since. Got to become the plant manager here in 2011 and was promoted to president here in December of 23. So it's been an awesome ride.
That is super cool. From a co-op student to the president over 20 years. That is, or 22 years, I guess, right? Yeah. That's amazing. Gosh, I wish we could get your experience and bake it into, to so many more young people that are in college today or deciding what to do and don't realize that they would probably also fall in love with manufacturing and machining. Cause it is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And what does DieCraft look like today in terms of your specialty and your size and machines and all that kind of stuff?
So we are 21 CNC machines on our floor, currently installing a DN horizontal pallet changer right now. That's going to be
nice.
New for us. We are 34 employees strong. And so we service the steel mill industry, heavy industry, a lot of support processes for steel making. kind of the way that DieCraft was originally founded, and Skip's vision for DieCraft was to have an industrial repair facility. So when I started here as a co-op, I got a lot of exposure to the equivalent of restoring an entire car. So we would take equipment, tear it down from, dirty, greasy, nasty steel mill type environment, clean it up, figure out what's wrong with it, and then restore the car, if you will, on this complex steelmaking equipment. And while that was a very good experience and taught me a lot when I was younger, and I can't count the number of people that have helped me, in my journey here at DieCraft, learn that stuff and become better on the engineering side and project management side. But it's hard to manage that business. It's very hard to restore cars, and get parts out the door and meet customer deadlines. And I always say that there's scope creep in those type of projects because you never know where the finish line is, because every time you uncover something else you find wrong or something else that needs repaired. And the engineer in me wants to make everything perfect. And sometimes in that world of repair, you can't make it perfect. It's got to be just good enough.
Right.
So we pushed the business here to modernize, and we standardized on Haas machines initially. We have 15 on the floor currently. And that was helpful because the staff challenge that you talk about on this show and all the other Making Chips family of podcasts, how hard it is to get and train and retain people. So we kind of went down the path of, hey, if we make this cookie cutter blueprint for DieCraft here and put the same machine, one just like it next to it, then we can float our operators around and they can learn one machine, one control, and they're not specialized. When I walked in the door here, we had every control. We had Amnalam, we had Heidenhain, we had Mazak, we had Siemens. I mean, it was just a hodgepodge of everything you can imagine. There was a Mitsubishi control here. So it was it was very hard because if somebody wasn't here, that machine didn't run that day because somebody was specialized in running that specific machine and control. So standardizing on the Haas helped us tremendously to build a staff here that is able to run parts and make what we need.
Now, you said you're installing a DN right now. So have you kind of branched out a bit more since then?
Yeah. So at the beginning of 25 last year, we put 2 brand new DN lathes in here at DieCraft. And that was our first revisit back to FANUC controls. And this new horizontal that we're currently installing has a FANUC as well. And it'll be kind of building upon our venture into the DN line.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I've heard great things about those machines. So it's cool that you're exploring that. So you had mentioned that you guys open your bay door and you see GE engines. Is that what you said?
GE aircraft. Yep.
GE craft. Do you do work in that industry as well?
Not a whole lot. We do some ground support and instrumentation type stuff for them when it comes up, but we haven't ventured too much into the AS world yet. We've talked about that as well down in Charlotte.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Well, let's go back a little bit and paint the picture of what was going on in the shop, what challenges you were facing when you decided to kind of look for a different ERP or some better way to run the shop.
Sure. So I've been here through the whole journey, so I'm well versed in everything that happened pre-ProShop and now that we have ProShop. So we basically had an ERP software it was a good software. It was good for what we did, but we outgrew it. And the biggest impending doom that was looming for us was future Windows updates were not going to be supported by that piece of software. So we kind of had a very good reason to search out ERP. So it was basically the September of 22, we went to IMTS, myself and Mark, who's my VP here that does quoting and estimating. We went to Chicago with the whole purpose of seeking out the next ERP for DieCraft. To be honest with you, we probably put everybody through their paces. We went to a lot of the solutions that were at IMTS that year, and The only one that we didn't get to actually see was ProShop. So
Oh, really?
your booth was so jam packed we couldn't even get in there.
Oh my gosh.
We
I apologize about that.
Right. So we actually were pretty certain we were going to go with another solution, leaving IMTS, and we came back and we did some demos. And if it wasn't for the Making Chips podcast and hearing a latest episode that was talking about ProShop, I'm sure we would have just went down that path. But now that we are in this scenario, I can't imagine going another route. So I'm glad that the cards aligned just the way that they did, and we ended up with ProShop. But we almost didn't. We found another solution, and it was unfortunately just because we couldn't get in front of you guys up at IMTS. But that's a good thing because the booth was packed. So a lot of excitement and a lot of interest was going on at that time.
Yeah, I remember last IMTS that was it was very busy, and 24 was as well. But that's not a good. That's not. we need to solve that at ProShop. So it's good feedback. So, all right, so your system was working reasonably well, but it was just going to become obsolete because it was a fully on-premise server-based system that just wasn't going to upgrade. Okay.
Yeah, we were paper-based. We had job travelers on the floor that were printed out. The other major challenge we had, and ProShop solved this immediately, was we only had 7 license seats here for the team to use. So, we were very limited on the number of people that could actually interact within that system. So I always likened it to, the management team had access and knew what was going on, but everything for the floor was static. So we'd print out hard copies. We'd have physical trailers. We'd have physical prints, things that, floated around the floor on pallets, chasing parts that we had to manage physical papers and things that had to have sign-offs and different checks and balances as we went through, but it was only live on the floor. So the only way you could know what was going on was to go chase those things down and see where the job was or what was signed off. I remember I called it the power tower. So we had these huge trays for job trailers that when we would process a job and have the packet ready to go to programming, it would sit in the power tower, and I would arrange those based off the schedule that I thought that they were going to run that. And then it would be up to the programmer to pull that out, program the job, and then put it back in the machine that it belonged to. But that physical paper environment was just it was hard to scale. It was hard to improve and really know where you stood at any given time.
Got it. Well, your situation is interesting because most of the time, as we tell these stories, there was some kind of, deficiency or weakness or lack of functionality in the actual product or system they were using previously. Not that it wasn't going to be able to upgrade to the latest version of Windows, but in your case, you're like, yeah, the system was fine, but we had this limit on upgrading. So once you got into ProShop and now looking back, obviously it sounds like you're enjoying the paperless aspect of it, but would you say that there were aspects of your system that you were satisfied with before that today you would not find good enough?
For sure. I think the ability to see much more than what we could before, the way that you would get to different things and navigate within the software, you might have to interpret 2 or 3 different pieces of data within that software, where ProShop consolidates that, puts that all in one place. You feel I trust it a lot more. And I think it's worth noting that we really didn't cover here. Kind of the perfect storm of things happened here at DieCraft shortly after we decided to onboard and start with ProShop. So we had some tenured employees, very valuable employees, reaching retirement age. So we had our vice president, Terry, of 52 years service here at DieCraft, reaching retirement age, and our front office manager, Mary Jo, who had been here 20 years as well. They were seeking retirement, and all of a sudden we had key positions with the number of hats that Mary Jo used to wear around here. We can't even count them. She was accounting. She was HR. She was emotional shop support mom. I mean, she did a fantastic job of all of the things that she did here. And now all of a sudden we had to figure out how we're going to live in a post Mary Jo world and a post Terry world where they were the experience and they knew everything about the business, and they did things that weren't documented and we didn't have process control over. So all of a sudden we were going to be implementing a new ERP and we don't have them here to help show us how to do things or the way that things used to be done. So I will say that process probably delayed our implementation a little bit. We purchased ProShop at the end of October of 22, following IMTS. And it was basically in the first quarter of 24 before we went fully live with it.
Oh, wow.
So it took us a while we went through training and it wasn't really a ProShop thing. It was not only do we have ProShop to figure out and we know we need to take on this ERP project, but we also knew that we had to figure out who's going to wear the hats from some of these key people retiring. Just to double check myself, I went back and looked. In 22, we had 11 people on the front office side of the business here. Wow. Here in 2026, we are at 6 people. So
holy cow!
The systems and processes that came with ProShop. Also, at the same time, we did a transition to a PEO to help with payroll and employee benefits and that type of stuff here. We did those 2 projects and we kind of did them parallel. I wouldn't necessarily advise somebody try to bite all that off at one time in the future. But
sure,
for us, it was necessary with retirements, coming up. Knowing that we were going to lose some key people.
And what months or years did those 2 people? Was it during 23 that they retired?
They retired basically in Q1 and Q2 of 24.
Okay,
so we had a little bit of runway there to try to get as much out of them before they left. But for me, the big thing, you talk about some differences between what we were doing and ProShop. It was a whole new world for me because I'd never really had a whole lot of P&L responsibility or understanding a lot more of the financial side of the business. So I never learned it in the old system. The old system did do the accounting also. And it was kind of like a crescent wrench. It fit everything, but I don't know that it did anything well. I think we utilized the software as good as we could and we did a good job with it, but it certainly had its limitations. So we certainly brought some of that philosophy and thinking to ProShop initially. And we tried to force some things on the initial setup of ProShop and things, for instance, like machine portion of overhead and machine rates and all these different things. We tried to do it our way. And we ran the business for 2024 that way. And it was the thing that's nice about ProShop compared to our previous solution was, how you do on a job immediately. I mean, you go through and you ship a job and you do an invoice and that dollar sign's right there telling you, come check out and see how you did on this job. And that wasn't something we had before. It was a lot more clunky and a lot harder to go find out how you did on that job at the end of the job. So we ran 3 business quarters through 2024 DieCraft's way. And then we saw that we weren't getting, the type of margin and results that we had hoped for. So we really, in the beginning of 25 last year, kind of went back to the drawing board, got on the help site, saw Kelsey's little Excel spreadsheets to do WIP calculations and figure machine rates and all this, background information. And you hate to talk about going back to Excel with a solution like ProShop, but those little worksheets were very, very helpful in my understanding to help learn how to set this thing up to help us learn to be successful and make money at what we're doing. And we definitely kind of rewrote the script at the beginning of 25, and we have seen tremendous impact to our business from caving and submitting to the ProShop way of understanding costing and how to set up your business to succeed.
Right. Okay. And Yeah. So like his little spreadsheet for just calculating what your overhead burden per hour should be on a machine type of thing, and then plugging that number into ProShop's dashboards kind of stuff.
Yep.
Got it. And the impact you're describing is just from having like truly accurate job costing and understanding to make decisions about quoting and estimating and which customers and part numbers and that sort of thing? Or?
Absolutely. So I've listened to several of your podcasts that talk about going back and truly expressing your costs that you have in customers. And sometimes there is a big jump in what that job should be valued at. And the data that's in ProShop has been paramount for us to go back to our customers and say, hey, look, this is literally what we have in this job. And it's helped us defend our pricing in a lot of cases. And, just the other thing that there's, a lot to this for sure, but understanding your machine efficiency is one of the things that's in the calculator of coming up with the machine rate for the machine portion of overhead. And for us, we had lost a contract on a specific part number that we ran, and we were able to think of it differently and say, well, what if we run this unattended at night on our pallet changing machine? So we were able to go back and offer like a 50% cost savings to the customer on that particular part, which got us all the work back. So we do a recondition of a part and then making those parts new. And we were trying to sell the value proposition of you run one campaign on a new part from us and then we recondition it. And the sum of the two was going to be a better value for them than buying new parts all the time. Mm-hmm. And that worked for a little while, but then the competition got hungry, sharpened their pencil, went more aggressive, beat us on new part price. But then we were able to win that back because we said, hey, if this is going to run unattended, we get to take all these things out and really lower the machine rate. And we got like I said, a 50% cost savings on the remake or the rerun of that particular part. And then we gained both sides of that business back. We got the rework business and the new part business because, again, our value prop came into play. And that wouldn't have been something that I probably would have thought to do without being in those spreadsheets and seeing, playing with those numbers and seeing, what happens when you take efficiency from 40 to 60 and 60 to 80 and you can really come back to your customers and offer some savings, but also protect yourself and protect your margins.
Very cool. I love that story. Let's talk about sort of what changed in the front office. You said you went from 11 to 6. I presume your revenue has grown since that time as well, but you also mentioned bringing on a PEO. How much of your sort of overhead reduction in labor do you attribute to the PEO and versus more efficient processes in ProShop?
I would say it's probably 25% our PEO relationship, and then 75% what's come about with ProShop.
Wow.
As I said, I didn't have to learn a lot of the old ways of the old system of doing things. So if there was invoicing and, other operations that I didn't do before, I never had to learn it or unlearn it, if you will. So I was very open to how ProShop does those things. And it was so simple the way that how clean everything is in ProShop. You have a customer PO, you ship a job and there's a packing list, and then you do an invoice and the invoice is right there on the same line. You got a job with a work order. You've got the packing slip that is associated with that. You've got the invoice right there. Everything's hyperlinked and super clean and quick to get to. To do that in our old system, even though I didn't do that as a daily operation before, you were closing windows and trying to remember numbers that you looked at from this job and this PO and this invoice number. And it was very clunky and very slow, and just ProShop is just so fast and so clean the way it organizes all that information.
So I was doing some quick math here. So you went from 11 to 6. So that's 5 people.
Yes.
If 75% of it was attributed to ProShop, that's 3.75 people. Do you really think that you saved between 3 and 4 overhead positions in the front office alone just because of greater efficiencies?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I've heard of clients, saving one person in overhead perhaps, or, 1.5 maybe, but that's, that's a very significant savings.
So to kind of reiterate or go back and revisit our old process. So we would do an RFQ, we would get an incoming RFQ, do a quote, be awarded a purchase order. All these things were physical documents that would come in, and we would make the dreaded packet that would get stapled together and follow these jobs and get stuck in a filing cabinet, down the road. That was people managing those things. And the order would come to a manufacturing engineer to process the job, to put the routing instructions in there. We called that order processing here. Then it would get sent over to somebody for purchasing, and they would do their magic and get the material ordered and meet a request for the manufacturing engineer on when we wanted material here. And then it would go to programming, and just all these things it would take so much time and get moved around. And these departments existed because it was, difficult to manage all of these things. So we basically cut out, like, our purchasing function is now combined with manufacturing. So, and there's a lot of value to that, because the person that knows exactly what you want is the same engineer that decided we're going to make it from XYZ material, and it's going to be, heat treated or have these specifications or these certs that are required. You're not sending that to somebody that's just necessarily looking for best price. You're getting an engineer that really understands and knows what they're trying to buy, has an understanding of downline processing, what those decisions mean when you try to cut corners or save money. But it's also allowed economies of scale and better decisions to be made, because you have the whole picture. You're not segmented the way that we were before. So purchasing and order processing, that was usually 3 people. That's now done by 1 for sure. The front office stuff that Mary Jo used to handle, I'm doing a lot of that stuff now myself. So definitely it was unfair to her to call that one job that she did, because she did so many different things here. But a lot of those processes and responsibilities that she had, I can now handle because of how smooth and clean it is to do in ProShop.
Now, obviously, you're not spending all of your time doing order entry. Like, you're still helping lead and run the business. And it sounds like that work is a small enough percentage of your time that it's just easy to get done. It's not a big burden, and you're still got plenty of time for the more high level stuff. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. And Zach, who I know you've talked to from here before, and you guys are communicating on LinkedIn and stuff a lot. Zach is doing all the order processing side of things right now, and the manufacturing engineer job, and doing a great job with that, and purchasing as well.
So in addition to the actual labor savings of bodies, can you talk a little bit about the lead time? Because I'm sure with, efficiency gains and not having to tie between lots of people and physical travelers sitting on desks and moving desk to desk, it's common to dramatically cut down the lead time of all this work. And maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
For sure. So in 24, at the beginning of 24, we had a major on-time delivery problem with our customers. They were complaining about late deliveries. We were pushing up on the 8 to 10 week threshold to complete and do new work for our customers. So at the same time that we unleashed ProShop, we put 3 new Haas mills on the floor. They were all same exact package VF4 Haas machines. And I will be honest with you, I'm not sure that the machines had as much to do with our success in fixing that metric as did ProShop. We were struggling at around a 50% on-time delivery, closing out 23 and starting into 24. And we hit some high points here in 25, up around 85% on-time delivery. So, and our customers live in a 4 to 6 week window. They usually don't have an attention span beyond that. So if you tell them 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, that's not going to work for them. So they're going to go elsewhere. So we have to be nimble and flexible and able to meet that. And the combination of some more capacity on the floor, but more so the processes and streamlined things that we do through ProShop have certainly contributed to that.
So in the same time, you've reduced your total lead time from
correct
order receipt to shipping.
Yep.
and increase your on-time delivery by 35 percentage points.
Absolutely.
Okay, wow. So, I've heard varying numbers of the office portion of that. I've heard shops that say, yeah, it used to take us 10 days from the time we got an order until it actually hit the floor and was ready to go on a machine potentially. And, and some are quicker, but oftentimes that reliably X amount of days got slashed to a quarter of that, or only a few hours, or same day. Do you have any sense of just what the time you took out of just the front end process, which gives you more time on the shop floor to actually make the parts?
For sure. So we used to have an Excel list of incoming purchase orders that needed entered, and that was a never ending list that 2 or 3 of us would get on and try to process the orders and get things flowing. And 2 or 3 people would often, I would say our average days to process a job would be maybe 3 to 5 days to get something from that list to an actionable job traveler that would start the process. Now, again, that's still slow because it's going to go through all those segments and departments that have to do their next move of the pawn on the board. But now, Zach, there's hardly ever a purchase order that comes in, customer PO, that sits on the list for more than a day. So the 3 to 5 days on the front end, immediate impact, and then hard to measure the improvement of how soon programming gets to see it and get started, and how soon all the downline processes have that visibility of the upcoming work for them, because it's not a physical paper that shows up on their desk now.
I mean, if it's if it's like I would expect, as soon as a work order gets created, if he's doing that same day, they obviously can see it instantly, especially if they're specified as the planner or programmer. They get instantly notified, shows up in their work queue.
Yep.
They could see it same day.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what potentially was, I don't know how long it took to move around all the desks, but 3 to 5 days plus another 2 or 3 or 4 days.
At least. We're probably talking about a 10-day window, honestly, of how things used to go to now. It's same day visibility.
Gosh, I'm so thrilled for that. That is awesome. Does that just relieve pressure on the shop side, when programmers have to have their program done, or just like, what are the downstream effects of cutting out 9 days of lead time?
I would say that was a buffer at one point in time that the shop appreciated, was to have extra time or slow rolling that information to them. So I would say that as good as we like to think that we are, there's still some room to improve on that. Now it's so easy to process an order and get it ready. The shop is now the bottleneck, and it's no longer the front end processes that used to eat up so much time.
Got it.
But yeah, it's good stuff.
Are you guys, with the nature of the parts and the geometries, are you programming offline with CAM, or are you doing stuff at machines or Yeah.
Everything in our milling department is all done offline programming. Some of our lathe programs here are conversational, and there's some jobs that the programmers will, or the machinists will, make some simple parts at their machine. If it's too complex, we do have a lathe programmer as well.
Got it.
But yeah, the majority, I would say 95% of what we do are offline programming.
Okay. And how has that process changed with documenting the job, not having a paper traveler, tool lists? I don't know. Are you guys using the tooling module? Are you cataloging and documenting those things yet? Or
so that is a major OFI for us. The tooling module is the next thing that we really want to dig into and utilize in ProShop. The reason why we've been slow adopters of that is we started down the path of the Zoller TMS system. So
that's right. We talked about this.
So following COVID weird era of life in 2020, we realized that there was a huge need to streamline how things go out in the shop. So we to mitigate risk at that time, we split up our workforce, and we had a Monday through Wednesday shift and then a Thursday through Saturday shift. We were doing the old segregate to stop the spread, right? Was the model at the time. So we were being careful to segregate our workforce, and obviously with half the workforce here at any given time, there's a need to get more done. Office work slowed down, so myself and other managers are like, hey, we don't have anything to do on the front end side of the business here. Let's go out and help the shop. So being full of gumption and excitement and passion and wanting to go out there and help make some parts, we would go through the old process of here's a program, here's a tool sheet, go find your tools, go build your tools. And, as much gumption as I think any of us had, we realized we would start at 6:30 in the morning and it would be noontime before we were ever making it ship. We had to find tools. We had to build tools. We had to put them in the machine. We had to use the OTS to measure the length and diameter offset of all those tools. And, here we are saying it's a 2-hour job. And why are we at noontime and we haven't completed a 2-hour job? Well, we had all this front end work that had to get complete before you could ever start the 2-hour job. So following that, we said, hey, we got to have a tool crib. We invested in a Zoller offline presetter. And we started down the path with them with some tool management solutions, some electronic cabinets for inventory and that was good. And it was a very nice first step for us. And it helped with our old ERP. And it was a good improvement for us. But again, that software has 3 seats. So we don't have that visibility across everything that we do. And I think that's the single biggest positive on the ProShop solution to that is all 34 users are going to have that visibility of the tools and where they're at and what we have and what we don't have. And right now that, unfortunately, that information is locked away with just 3 users that operate in that system. So it's definitely something we want to do. We're not there yet, but it's
sure, that makes sense.
It's what we're going to get after it hard.
Nice. So besides your tool list, what else has changed about the way the programmers communicate downstream to the machinists about the offsets and the work instructions and, where the 0 points are or any other thing that they're documenting?
So our old solution for that was basically to have like viewing seats for FeatureCam, which is our program software that we primarily use still today. We're migrating towards Fusion, and I think there's a lot of benefits to Fusion in the future that we're working towards. But basically, the read-only license of that at each computer workstation out in the shop that the employees use, they were able to bring up the program and just kind of like simulate it and run it, and that's where they would really understand work offsets and the order in which tools are going to come out and understand where rapid moves and some things were going to happen. So that's been kind of our crutch to get from A to B right now with that. And so much of this is just done now and can be migrated towards ProShop with sequence details and part description and all the different fields. We don't do it on every job because we are a high mix, low volume shop. I shared with you our median order size is about 2 parts. I think we upped it last year in 25 to 3.
Oh, 50% increase. Yeah.
We're heading in the right direction. So there's just a lot of changeover and a lot of things that the guys are going through all the time. So we don't perfectly nail down all the details, but on repeat jobs that we know we're going to run again and again and again, we're really dialing in and putting setup pictures and offset information and all that stuff in the ProShop job. So in the future, the goal would be that anybody can take and run that job and not a specific operator that's had experience with it in the past.
Yeah. And how much of your work is repeat versus a new part number that you're making for the first time?
We are probably about 60-40 right now on repeat to new parts. So
that's a lot of new parts, especially at only quantity of 2 or 3.
Right. So yeah, I've been preparing my modern machine shop top shop survey data and review what we did last year. So we did almost 2,100 work orders last year here at DieCraft. So a lot of work orders getting created, and when some of those are only a couple parts, it's there's a lot that goes into getting a job ready for the shop. And the fact that we've been able to streamline that and make that happen so much faster with ProShop has really helped, get those documents created to give the shop a fighting chance to try to machine the parts and get them done on time.
Mm-hmm. So with that unlock of, and I don't know, we talked about lead time, talked about people time, in terms of overhead people, but do you have a sense of how many like hours of per work order you might have saved on the front end? Even if it's an hour, that's 2,100 hours, which is one full-time person, and you've saved 3+. So I'm guessing it's a lot more hours than one hour per job.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it would be hard to quantify that because, a lot of that went into just the lump bucket of overhead costs that we would have considered before.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of an exact number of where we've landed on that, it would be hard to quote that, but it's significant time savings for sure.
Yeah. And does that translate, just all those improvements, is that translated to just higher velocity of jobs on the shop floor? Getting them out faster. And if assuming, you've probably heard me talk about positive sales pressure, right? You have more demand coming in the front end. So you can, if you get jobs out the door faster on the back end, there's just more work to backfill rather than, having machines with not running anything. Has that translated into actual revenue throughput?
For sure, because our customers, they demand that 4 to 6 week lead time. And when we were pushing out to the 8 to 10, sometimes 12-week lead time before ProShop, that was leading to lost work and lost opportunities. And we had customers basically tell us we'd love to give you more, but we don't have faith and trust that you'll get the job done and meet our delivery. And if you can, whittle this down and get us more into the 4 to 6 week realm, there's plenty more here. So we've definitely found that to be the case.
Okay. Can you give us any even just rough percentages of like just how much more you've grown that capacity in the last couple of years?
I mean, I would say specifically in like milling throughput, because that's kind of the core of our business. That's what we focus on most. I would say that we've opened up another 20% capacity easy.
Wow.
Through our vertical milling, which is the core of our business.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's significant.
Right.
That's really nice. 20% more revenue, quite a bit less overhead. That's a good formula for more profit. Let's talk about quality and audits. And, we often hear customers talking about showing their customers ProShop when they come to audit or visit, and just that impact and, additional trust. Or have you shown ProShop to your clients, and what's that been like?
Absolutely. To start to kind of talk on the quality piece, we've gone through 2 ISO 9000 audits here with ProShop as our primary operating system. Anybody who is listening to this that is thinking about ProShop, I highly recommend the Flying Start package. It would not make any sense, in my opinion, if you seek these quality standards to not do that, because it just makes it so simple and so clean. We've gone through 2 audits here and had 0 findings, a couple little OFIs here and there, but every audit that we've gone through, every customer tour that I give, everyone is blown away by our system, by ProShop, how clean it is, how organized it is. I'm not sure what's going on here in Cincinnati, why we seem to be an outlier, and there's not, from what I can tell, very many customers of ProShop here. Maybe Paul, you can speak to that a little bit, but everybody that sees our system is blown away by it. So I'm waiting for the day that somebody comes in and says, "Oh yeah, I know ProShop. I've seen this before." Because whether it's a tooling vendor or a machine tool builder or somebody, I love to walk around the shop and show what we're doing. And I will speak to, we have some customers that are, significantly bigger than us that we do work for. And I initially did a shop tour and showed them ProShop, and there was some discrepancies on part counts and where orders were. And basically the guy who came here and took the tour, which was a purchasing agent, he said, I'm just going to go with your system because I know how clean and organized your system is, that I'm 100% sure your system is right and ours is wrong. So, that says
nice.
says a lot for a customer that's, a behemoth in size compared to us. But, since he saw our system and saw how well organized it is, and I've done that a lot. I've sent screenshots of customer POs that have really nice, clean, organized PO information and part numbers organized, and the pack, as I mentioned before, the way that the packing slips and the invoices align, like it is very, very quick to provide them with that information. And you show them that a few times and they're like, oh, I'm not going to question that your record keeping is accurate anymore.
That's a nice trust builder right there. That's awesome. With your customers, do you have to prepare like cert packages and that sort of thing?
Not very often.
Okay.
Our current clients in the steel industry don't require that a lot. I will say that there's certain times where certain vendors will want the material certs or the heat treat certs, and instead of flying around to a filing cabinet somewhere and trying to copy that and email that, I'm just a mouse click away from getting that stuff out of ProShop, and usually can respond in a matter of minutes to those requests, as opposed to sometimes it might take a couple hours, or sometimes it may have got misfiled, and maybe I got to call a vendor and get another cert sent down here. That stuff's all long in the past for us.
So even though your customers aren't necessarily requiring it, you still have the practice of getting them and scanning them every time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good habit. Very good. What was it like for your guys and gals on the floor to not have paper travelers? Were they somewhat hesitant, reluctant? I was at a customer yesterday, and I talked to a machinist that was probably in his late 60s. He's like, yeah, I didn't like ProShop at first, but I was just being stubborn, and now I actually love it. It makes my job easier. So what kind of responses did you guys have?
I have another funny story along those lines. So I had a machinist, fantastic lathe operator, same age group that you described. Mm-hmm. He was very, very reluctant at first. He didn't want the computer, didn't want the workstation, and he actually runs it's a CNC lathe, but it's kind of a flatbed lathe, and it's kind of operated a lot like a traditional manual lathe. Mm-hmm. And he had his computer, his ProShop workstation swung over so close to the chuck and flung a bunch of coolant on the little Mini X computer and basically cooked the computer. And he was down for 2 or 3 days while we got a replacement computer in here. And from the guy that said, I'll never do this, to then be absolutely fit to be tied, upset that he was down for a few days of having his, he had to walk to another computer. We had to get him a tablet or something temporarily for a couple of days. He was very upset to not have his own personal, computer workstation out in the shop. So it was definitely a funny, interesting transition out in the shop.
That is funny. So did he just come to rely on it helping to do his job better, or what do you think changed for him?
They saw how easy it is. And, again, kind of talking back to the old system, we used to have one time clock station where the guys would punch in and punch out for the day. But then if we were ever going to try to even do any time tracking at all, they would all flock to the one time clock in the shop and be holding their paper travelers and typing in 8-digit numbers for job numbers and then clicking a bunch of buttons. And you can imagine how inefficient that is when you have 20 people in the shop trying to go to one terminal to time track.
Sure.
So, that data was in the past was no good and not helpful, and, just created a lot of waste out in the shop for the floor.
Got it.
So they, once they realized they had it was a lot easier to convince them to time track and to do all the things that they wanted or that we needed, for the business. It was a lot easier when we provided them a better resource to do that.
Got it. And I imagine that higher quality accuracy of time tracking gives you job costing, which you may not have really had before.
It's the linchpin of our success right now, for sure.
Got it. And has that just really informed your decision making about pricing and part numbers and clients? And
absolutely,
are you taking fewer loser jobs or no loser? I mean, sometimes people miss on the first quote, but continuing to take a job that you lose money at is sometimes a hidden issue. Maybe just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, we had lots of those buried in what we did here, and certainly, the old way that we did things, we did not follow, as I said, the ProShop way of understanding costing and pricing. So when we started to migrate in that direction, it became so clear that some of those things were being hidden or baked in ways in which were very hard to account for. And now ProShop has unlocked that to where it's front and center. We can see it, and it's helping us transition away from the repair side of the business to more of the parts manufacturing and contract manufacturing that we want to do, and that we've built the shop to do, and hope to continue to grow in the future.
So in that way, that really is sort of an empowering mechanism to shift your entire business into a direction that you want it to go strategically.
Absolutely. I don't think there's enough validation or discussion here on these podcasts to really, ProShop is not a software solution, or it's not entirely or only a software solution. It's more of a community of like-minded leaders in manufacturing. And if you get into the circle, there's just so much to learn and so much to garner with resources that are out there. And I don't know how you have time to do all these podcasts and all the different things that you do personally, Paul, but it's been a tremendous help in my personal journey here, trying to help build and lead DieCraft. And I can't thank you enough for what you do.
Dude, you're going to choke me up. Well, I appreciate that. I do love this community that we seem to be building here, and people like yourselves that are just so invested in giving back and contributing, and this adage of the rising tide lifts all boats, and just like sharing in our forum, or doing webinars with us, or podcast, whatever it is, it feels amazing. And if you've listened to these, that I say this is the hardest business in the world, and trying to go at it alone or with the knowledge that from the business you've been in, this is the only place you've really ever worked, right? And prior to ProShop, ProCNC was the only place I ever really worked. So I didn't really, I'd been in maybe half a dozen other shops, just kind of seeing a little bit of what they did. But it can definitely be a bubble. It can be kind of isolating, and we got to stick together. We got to grow together. So I think we firmly believe that and want to give back as much as we possibly can to help this industry. So appreciate you contributing to that as well. We talked a little bit about quality with audits and stuff. Are you making a lot of use of sort of like the tactical quality of like first articles and in process and balloon drawings and that sort of thing?
There is a lot of effort we're steering towards. We do have high QA. That was another thing that we started down the path to help with the balloon drawings. We do a lot of prints here that have metric dimensions on it, and the worst thing you can do is let a machinist or your guy on your floor out there with a calculator and convert dimensions, and not only the time that it takes to do that, but the potential to make a mistake. So we're definitely sending that stuff to the floor, prepared and ready to go. Zach's doing a really good job of getting that stuff in there. I will say that the tactical side, as you described, of first article checks, that's something that is an improvement area for us. We're not doing a whole lot in there. There's some specific jobs where part check info is set up ahead of time, and dimensions for our quality inspector are filling them out as they go. But that's a smaller percentage of what we do, but certainly something we aspire to get better at in the future.
I mean, it makes total sense. If your average order size is 2 or 3 parts and you're very likely not to get them again, like we have that feature where you can check the box, first article on print.
Right.
So you just check the box, you forget all the data entry, and you just literally write it on the print and maybe scan it in later.
Right.
But, in our own prototype department that we had at ProCNC, that is what they did 80% of the time, right? Because they were doing one or two parts, not likely to ever do it again. It just didn't make sense to balloon it and do all the, even importing the data just to then, fill out that first article, which the customer may not even want for a prototype, right? So, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. There's so many more things I'd love to dig in with you, Bond, but in respecting your time, and I know it's even later there where you are than it is here as it gets late in the afternoon. You've talked about kind of the impact overall on the company with, shortening lead times and extra throughput. But what's could have been the impact on, you and Skip and just maybe even just sort of culturally, if at any?
Yeah, obviously the business is thriving. It's growing. We're excited about the future here. And for me, I kind of had to start drinking from a fire hose when I became president in 23. As I said, there was a lot of new roles and a lot of new hats that I had to wear. And, for me, again, without this community, without the ability to learn and have examples of how to be successful, and just as I keep coming back, I just don't know that there's enough discussion about how well you can learn to run your business with the help of what ProShop has. And, I don't think that, maybe that those keys were straight handed to us. I think it took a lot of work here and digging into the help site and ProShop and uncovering some of these things and learning for ourselves. We used to think of how we would run a job based off of, hey, it's $100 or $150 for an hour to run this machine. Thinking about this now as a three-headed dragon or a three-legged stool of you've got the machine portion of overhead, you've got the fully burdened rate of your operators, you have the indirect overhead, and putting these numbers, the profits entry page in every month and doing that initialization every month on the machine portion of overhead. It's helped me really learn and understand where we're at with the business and profitability that I would have never had an opportunity to learn with the old system. And bless Skip for everything that he's done owning the business here for 25 years. He didn't really have tools like I now do to help make good decisions going forward. So he had the school of hard knocks and really just rolling up the sleeves and getting after it and just being, having the gall and the stomach to try to do some of this stuff, but not near the type of tools that I now have at my disposal to help make good decisions. And he's very open-minded to receive the information and to see the things that we're presenting and the data that we can extrapolate from the system. And instead of it being an emotional reason of, hey, we don't want to do this job because we don't like it, or the perception of, hey, we're being lazy by not wanting to do that job. It's like, no, this is a dollars and cents thing here that we can't make money doing that. So we want to move on and, continue to go after the things that we know we can do and do well.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And I think Skip and I are going to dig into more of that story on Machine Shop Mastery. I think he just replied this morning that said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. So that'll be a fun conversation. I guess maybe really one last question or two with this, again, going back to this idea that you were happy enough with your system prior, but you just didn't know what you didn't know, probably. Can you extrapolate out and imagine what would the business look like right now? What would you be up to if you had never made that decision? If your old system did upgrade to the latest version of Windows?
I don't even want to think about it, Paul. Where we would be with our old system. I mean, we would certainly have a lot more people here trying to help make sense of what we were doing. It would have hindered a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth that we have had, in the 2 short years that we've started the relationship here with ProShop. And I don't think that there's any way that I would be able to do the type of responsibilities and the leadership stuff that I'm trying to do here with the business. I wouldn't have time because I would be bogged down, and a cog in the machine to keep moving all the processes forward the old way.
Well, it's like I said, it feels good to me, and I know to our whole team, to enable you to work on more strategic, important things and let the business, sort of thrive on the administrative and operational side. So, just so glad that we can help kind of elevate what you're doing to really, lead the business into the future. Yeah, if people want to learn more about DieCraft, where would you suggest they reach out?
We have a presence on social media, DieCraft on LinkedIn. Follow us on Facebook. We try to. I've made it a conscious effort to try to let some of the younger generation get involved with posting some of the fun things and the reels and different things that the younger generation is far better suited at than myself. And just reach out to us at our website, diecraftmachine.com.
DieCraftMachine.com. Okay, very good. Well, Justin, thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your journey. I know sometimes we get into some details that sometimes companies kind of guard a little more closely, and you've been very candid, and I appreciate you sharing today. And again, just thanks for the trust you guys gave us. I'm glad the cards did fall, even though our booth was too busy. You learned a little bit more, and it's just an honor to help serve you guys.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
All right. Thank you so much.